Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I am your host, Angie Grant, and for our summer guest series, I'm so excited to bring to you a friend who I met locally because we have a huge shared interest. So I'm excited to have a conversation with her and share her gifts with you. So, welcome, Christina Slaback. I am so excited that you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angie. I am excited for our conversation. I think that when I had reached out to you originally and we kind of connected, I just felt an instant vibe with you. I feel like we have a lot of similar values. I feel like we have similar experiences and interests, and I am really excited to just kind of be able to chat with you and your audience.
Yeah, so cool. So, well, let's just start there, right? Like, I would love for you to share with the audience, yeah, a little bit about your journey, what led you to where you are today, and yeah, what you do, how you serve.
Yeah. Yeah, so I do life and business coaching, and my favorite is to do an intersection of life and business together. So a lot of the women that I serve particularly are women that are passionate about interest or pursuing something, whether it's on the side or they have their own business, or even if they're just working professionally, but they want, they have ambition, but they also don't want that to be at the detriment of their personal life, of their connection with their family. A lot of them are moms, like the kind of balancing it all type of women that are just feeling overworked and stressed out and just hustled to death. And really want to connect back with what is important to them. And what I really do is I help them to zero in and really connect with those core desired feelings, those values, and be able to then structure and build their lives, their calendars, their routines all around that sense so that they're not feeling like they're constantly flitting in all these million directions and never being able to feel fulfilled, but really giving them that permission to let go of some stuff and to just let go of a lot of that mom guilt that we often get and really be able to feel secure and confident in who they are and what they're doing. And the way that I came about this, I'm actually have a background. I got my degree in psychology and Spanish as a minor in business. I thought I was going to go into counseling for a little while, and then I really decided that I liked the organization standpoint and like how all that interaction works as well. And so I went into more of a corporate world and then started running a nonprofit and working with a lot of businesses and doing community events and doing a lot of that stuff. And during that time, I became a mom too and started to feel more of that pressure and that pull and really wanting to just be true to myself and carve my own path. And so I noticed I started doing a lot of things that just felt right to me and weren't necessarily mainstream parenting. And then trying to manage that with these professional ambitions that I had. And so we homeschool the kids just because, and I know that you know too, like I do a lot of, have a background in human design, and both of my kids are Manny generators. And so they are just on the move. And I just, as I was starting to, they were getting school age, they were so busy. They were so on the move, and it just didn't feel like I could put them in and have them be sitting for 8 hours a day. So we just kind of gradually started to like, we'll just do some play-based stuff. We'll do some of those other things. And so doing and leaning into those just helped me to be able to figure out what those important factors were. And then I was able to just kind of steer and create this own thing, and then being able to learn how to manage my time as a homeschooling mom, as a, a director of a nonprofit, as doing all of these things. And I really hit kind of a burnout. And so then being able to find the tools and being able to reconnect with what success looked like for me versus what I thought that I was supposed to do, which is all the Instagram perfect, the clean house, the beautiful party, like all of the things that we think that we need to do. Um, and having that just was so eye-opening for me and brought me so much peace that I had to start to share it. So I started doing the coaching and consulting about 3 years ago now, and I just love it so much. I love being able to interact with people that are really excited and passionate about what they do, and to be able to bring that passion back alive, because sometimes I feel like we lose it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks for sharing all of that. And what I was thinking as you were talking was that when I'm working with clients, I probably similar to you, I start with an assessment. They come to me because they're struggling with behaviors. That is how they end up on my schedule, that they're feeling like they can't connect, the behaviors are just out of control. And so I go through this assessment, and so often what I find with clients is that they've really, they don't quite use these words usually, but they've lost touch with themselves. They've lost themselves in motherhood and in, perhaps working in a career. And it's oftentimes that like loss of connection with source, with themselves, with like being grounded, that then ends up spilling out and struggling with behaviors. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that, like balance and losing yourself and yeah, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is so true. And I think that for many of us as women, we grow up in a society where, we just do and we do for others and we just keep going. And it's just like this constant, there's never letting go of anything. We just continue to add. So once we get our routines or our stuff down and we're like, yeah, I got this locked in, then it's not like, oh, and I'm going to add something else. So I'm going to take away. It's just like, no, I'll keep adding until we like reach a breaking point. And I think for a lot of women, we hit that and we notice that not necessarily when we feel it in our own bodies, because I think a lot of times we're kind of like ignoring our own needs, our own feelings, even our own physical selves. Not to mention, like you're talking like the connection to your inner self, and especially in motherhood. And so then I think that when I have clients reach out to me, and I'm sure yours is probably the same too, it's because you have that external mirror, especially in motherhood, of seeing kind of where you are feeling off because of something else. So it's like, yes, I don't have control over my kids anymore. I don't have control over somebody else's expectations of me. And what it is that what I found is our kids and our businesses, anything from this outside, it's so much of a teacher for ourselves. And what I notice is that when I will be reaching a trigger point or I'm having some kind of a struggle, especially with my kids, that more often than not, like we look externally, right? So it's like if they could only change what this is, or if I could just get them to like fix this thing. But for me, like realizing that I don't have control over them, I'm not supposed to have control over them, and I'm the adult in the relationship. So like I need to take responsibility for my part in it and noticing my part. You can use that so much to be able to view that and to find that place back to you because I know that for a lot of people that I talk to, and I'm curious if you feel the same too, is that because we take on this and when we take on this role as moms, a lot of times then we'll start to get our self-worth from being a mom. So then our kids' behavior is directly attached to our own security and our own self-confidence in ourselves. So if they're acting out, it is no longer just like they're acting out and that's like yes they're children, they're going to act out. It's like this is a direct attack on myself personally and how I am as a mother and how I'm raising these humans to be. And then especially if you compound that into any kind of like public display, like I'm at the grocery store, my kid's having a tantrum. And so then I think that that's where we can notice and have that if we have our confidence and we have ourself rooted and grounded in who we are, then it's so much easier as a parent then to be able to be like, yeah, my kid's having a meltdown because they're having a meltdown. And that's just direct, like that's age appropriate behavior. And it doesn't have to have any bigger meaning to me. And I think that that calmness actually creates so much more safety for the relationships around and for the parenting. So what I find for my clients that I work with is that if I can help them get back to them, then all of the other relationships in their lives improve so much because they're not looking for that external validation all the time.
Yeah. That's so good. And it was part of the discussion actually that I had with another woman earlier today. I was interviewing a yogi and we were talking about that. We were actually talking about tantrums at Walmart. But at the core of it, you're so right, is that if our self-worth and when we go into parenthood, most of us don't go into parenthood with this like perfectly solid, well-rounded sense of self-worth. Because as you know, and I know, and my listeners know that, we're born with our design and our parents don't know it. So hopefully my goal, my mission on this planet, and I think yours too, is to help parents see their kids through that lens of what their energetic needs are. But our parents didn't know that. and and perhaps it will take several generations to make this shift, but when we don't know our kids' design, our parents didn't know our design, didn't know our energetic needs, then the feedback that they gave us, even in the best parenting situations, were through their lens of their own energetic needs. And so it is inevitable that our self-worth has been chipped away at or perhaps totally knocked off its foundation because because others didn't necessarily know what we needed to feel valued. I've been on this kind of bandwagon lately about praise, right? Like I'm such a people pleaser, and I was so taught to praise, right? It was part of my professional training for 20 years. It's what I taught other people to do. And now looking at it through that lens of, like I'm energetically designed to be a people pleaser anyways. And then to use praise to help me, like it's putting my value, my self-worth outside of me and oftentimes in somebody else. And so really like breaking those habits to build that self-worth. So I love your slightly different perspective on that value of self-worth and how the way that we struggle with our kids misbehaving is can for most of us be such a reflection of how we value ourselves and where we put that value. Instead of it being in us, we put it in our kids, we put it in our job, we put it in our marriage, we put it in how our significant other treats us or how our best friend treats us.
Yeah, and then when we're doing that, we're outsourcing all of our power, right? And then we're wondering or we're not sure on why we feel so out of balance. It's because we are not grounded and centered in our own like what really is important to me. And as soon as you get to that point where it's like you can figure out these are the things that are actually really truly important to me, these are the things that matter for me. And not that they won't adjust and grow as you grow and change, but having that like compass point of this is who I am, this is what I'm going towards, this is what is important for me, you can block out so much other noise because there are always things that we could and or should be doing. And if we're constantly measuring ourselves against the person that's doing this or the person that's doing that, the one that's running the marathons and the one over here who is at home cooking home cooked meals every night for their family and the one over here who is, climbing their corporate ladder or whatever it is, like you're never going to be all of those things at once. But I think that you can have it all if you know what that means for you. So it's not having the all that is for everybody, it's having the all that is for you and being fully and completely you. And when you get really clear on that, then I think that it just helps so much. And like you were saying too, who I am, and the more that I have figured out who I am, honestly, some of that is from learning how my kids are different and like noticing how, oh, you know what, I'm reacting to this differently and my child is reacting to this differently because she's a completely different person than I am or than her sibling is. And so being able to give them compassion has helped also for me to be able to give myself compassion and being able to say we all function a little bit differently. Like you're saying, like we are all very individualistic in how we approach the world, how we come into this world. And to be able to allow that space and being able to have that knowledge is so helpful in being able to show up for them in the way that's helpful for them. And also to be able to know how to refresh myself and know like this is going to be a triggering situation for me. And so maybe I need to like prepare myself or give myself some recovery afterwards. And knowing that and making space for that, I think has been so important as I've been on my journey of, doing all the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and, you were saying compassion, and one of the coaches that I work with, she would often teach us be a compassionate scientist. So when things don't go the way that we expect them to, instead of feeling defeated or taking that as a reflection of how well we did the thing to almost like step back and take almost like you're outside the window and look in and like, okay, what do I observe that happened here? Not what went wrong or what didn't I do right, but what happened here. And when I first started learning about human design, I feel like it like gave this visual to it, right? So like the idea of being a compassionate scientist, I could wrap my head around that, and I've been working on that skill. But now when I'm talking with somebody or observing somebody, I instead of I mean, I still have that trauma lens of like what happened to them, but I also then say, I wonder what's in their design that's
Yeah.
leading to them, what I could easily perceive as them being rude or obnoxious or careless or whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that rude or obnoxious are in your design. What I think, though, is that there are elements in our design that can be more easily conditioned and in their shadow side can come out as being rude or obnoxious, right?
Yeah, and I think too, like to that point, where I think that so many of the behaviors, like you're saying, like the rude and obnoxious and whatever, you can see it, and especially if you are um like a parent looking at somebody else, if you're an outside person and that's what you're getting from them, that those are the same skills and attributes that probably would make them very assertive, very
Mhm.
like the negative behaviors so often that we see are actually probably, and especially for our children, like I try to remind myself too, is that these behaviors that I'm seeing in this negative lens is because that's the way that they're coming out right now, but they are probably some of my children's greatest strengths and potentials too, if we're able to amplify the good part and help like get out of that shadow state to a place where they are able to embrace those parts and be able to find the good and the positive qualities that are coming from that, because nobody is created in a like, oh, this is all terrible. Like there's just iterations for everything that we see that are the good and the bad, and being able to tap into and not thinking of that as like, oh my God, a child's just constantly rude and obnoxious and oh, but like, yeah, that's how it's showing up right now. And how can I help them to adapt these qualities to be able to become this assertive leader that they probably, could also be?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you and I first met, I if I remember right, we met at this coffee shop. We sat outside. It was last year, I think. But I remember telling you about how, I've only been in my experiment of learning human design for the past couple of years, but my kids are 19 and 23, and both of my kids are projectors. My daughter is biological, my son is adopted, but they're both projectors or have that projector energy type. And growing up, somehow instinctively, I knew that there was something just magical about both of my kids. But I remember time after time after time, um, I would feel frustrated in with my daughter, right? Because she's very blunt and can in true projector style, will when her energy is depleted, she is bitter as heck, and she creates a very strong force field around her with her words. And as her mom, I had all this really strong behavior management training, and I didn't use it with her, and I didn't understand why, but I knew that there was a reason behind her behavior. She wasn't a bad kid. She wasn't trying to be mean. And she would feel so awful when she would say the things that she would say. But man, time after time after time, I would get called into school because, or at parent teacher conferences where they would, tell me how rude my daughter was. And and every time I would say, because they're like, she was I'd say, explain to me what you mean. And they would say, well, she interrupts in class, she corrects me, she corrects the other students, she interrupts the other students. And I would say, like, but was she wrong? And they would say, well, but that's not the point. She needs to listen, she needs to wait her turn. And I'm like, I don't think she does, though. And if she sees that there's a mismatch in expectations, she's gonna call you out on it. And I didn't fully understand then, but clearly my mom gut knew that she needed a mama bear to stick up for her because she has this beautiful gift as a projector. And now, I mean, it still comes out. She's still working on, she's not in human design. She knows
Mhm.
her type, but she's still working on that like how to handle or how to manage her energy. But I have this gift now of seeing her through this other lens. So when she is just, her mouth is going because I can now see that as like, who she's expended all of her energy. What can I do to help take something off her plate? Because I feel like it is, and it's not enabling her. It's not, I think some parents would be like, you're just letting her, talk to people like that. I'm like, but no, that's looking at her through the old generational parenting, and that's not how I'm running my family. And yes, she's an adult, but if I can help serve her, be a steward for her energy in a way that I still have my own boundaries. I'm not, like being a martyr by any means, but we all live together in a generational home, and when she's losing her cool, I offer help. Like, hey, can I take the girls and play? Or can I do this? Can I do that? And sometimes she's like, no, get out of my space. Like, okay, it sounds like you might need a break, so I'm here when you're ready. So she's not always accepting of it, but having that tool in my tool belt to really understand what's happening is so different than I think what traditional parenting is. And that's, I mean, man, we're here to help parents flip this upside down, right?
Absolutely. And I think that that's so true. And I think that there is this misconception because I'll often consider myself like a gentle parent. And I think a lot of times people think that that means I'm a permissive parent, but I actually have very strong boundaries and I have high standards for my kids a lot of times. Like I do expect a lot, but I have this compassionate overview and the feeling that I have of giving them the benefit of the doubt. So they do talk back to me sometimes, and I'm not always gonna like throw a fit about that or because I'm just gonna that's where they are. And that's how they're managing their energy. And it's not my job. And I don't think that it's helpful in the old traditional like scolding them on that or disciplining them for that because that's just the behavior that's coming out. And what I want to do is I want to help them to be able to learn and manage and regulate. And so
Yeah.
by giving that supportive environment, like you're talking about for your daughter, like giving the supportive environment and giving the space for them to realize one, because I think a lot of times they, like you're saying, like if they're having getting upset or they're being blunt and they're not saying things like they're not happy about the way that they're acting sometimes. And then
Yeah.
adding on that layer of shame, I think is just adding on all of this stuff that then as adults we've been like trying to unlearn.
Yes.
So, like as children, giving them the space to not shame them on top of that, but giving them this perspective of like, okay, so this probably didn't go as you planned. This didn't go as I planned. Like, let's unpack this and let's be able to give you the tools that this might be something that comes up for you. And knowing that you are blunt, you are often telling the truth and you have a high degree of like fairness and justice and you want to be able to communicate that. And those are amazing gifts. And also sometimes it can come across as rude and stuff. So like giving them the space to be able to have their self-knowledge and even whether they, are into the human design part or whether it's just more communicated in just a different way, but being able to give them that knowledge and the support to be able to say like, all right, and now like how do we help to emotionally regulate? Like how are you going to know you're giving yourself enough rest so that you're not getting to these points where the behavior comes out in ways that you don't want?
Yeah, yeah. And right, like this conversation, I think still goes back to self-worth, right? Like when we can help our kids value themselves just for being them, not because of what they do or what words come out of their mouth, good, bad, or otherwise, right? I think it's so easy when our kids are sweet and kind and complimentary. It's so easy um it feels so easy for us as the adults, like, oh, you're being so sweet, you're being such a good kid. It's so easy to do that. And then still they're tying their value to us instead of themselves. And on the flip side, when our kids are misbehaving, right? Like I think old generational parenting patterns where if your kid misbehaves, you need to attend to it right now. And I love what you said because we don't need to. They already are beating themselves enough. They don't need us to add more sludge to that. This morning I was listening to there's this last little part, it might even be the last chapter in the top five regrets of the dying. And I don't know if you've ever read it or listened to it, but she tells this story about how when we're born, and I don't think she knows anything about human design. I think this is just her way of viewing the world, but that she says when we're born, we're like these glowing globes.
Mm.
But life, other people's opinions, other people's ideas throw mud at it. And then when we see people throwing mud at us, we start throwing mud at ourselves. And before you know it, our glow doesn't shine anymore. And, as we, sometimes we'll have an awareness or we'll see somebody else doing something great and we're like, we rub a little bit of that mud off and our glow shines through. And then we're like, no, 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 we can't let it shine, right? And she says it so much better than I did, but that idea of like our kids don't need us to add more mud to cover their glow. They already unfortunately probably do enough of that themselves. They get it from other kids, they get it from social media. They don't need us telling them that they made a mistake. They already know. There, of course, we have a role in teaching our kids, but I think as parents, many of us were trained to, we don't use these words, but we were trained to shame our kids into behaving in a way that makes us happy. And that's a really hard pill to swallow as a parent because we don't want to think we're shaming our kids, but when we're telling them that they're wrong or they're, bad and even in a nice way, it gives that message to them and they don't need that. Not from us
No.
at least.
No, and I think that that's so true. Like having one of my goals as a parent is to give and provide a safe space for my kids to be able to become whoever it is that they want to be and whoever they are supposed to be and removing my expectations of what that looks like. And also to what you're saying, like just giving that space. So giving a lot of latitude for if they're going to have a hard time, I would rather that they have a hard time and they are feel confident and trust me enough that I can remove myself or not be as reactive to when they're having a hard time that they can trust me to be their full complete selves when they're losing it too, and
Yeah.
having it be that safe space. And at the same time, like you were saying, like teaching, we do have a role in teaching. And I think that my role is to help guide them and to bring them back to themselves and give them the tools to support that. But I'm not going to be there all the time. And I
Yeah.
absolutely don't want to shame my kids, but I'm also not tying any of my self-worth to their behavior. Like they're on their own journey. And
Yeah.
so I am just here as a guide and I want to be a helpful guide. I want to clear the path for them when they might need some help, but also I'm not here to build their path and I'm not here to smooth it over. Like I want them to be able to struggle and have that resiliency and be able to build and that self-confidence in themselves too, to be able to figure it out and find the solutions and find what works while just providing resources along the way.
Yeah.
And I just think that being able, again, to just have that ability, like you're saying, to let them see their strengths because everybody, like you're saying, like everybody's going to throw mud. Everybody is throwing mud all the time, and being able to help them come back to that shining orb and being able to see them in that light. And I think that as a parent, it can be hard sometimes, especially when our kids trigger us, to
Hmm.
even be able to see that light for ourselves and like, oh, I'm just seeing all the mud here. I'm seeing all the things that are just triggering things in me, and it's just seeming like a lot of behavior that I'm having to deal with right now. But by being able to go into it and intentionally look for it and work on myself so that I'm in a place where I am regulated enough that I can be able to continue to bring them back to that shining orb that they are and being
Yeah.
able to accept the fact that I have a shining orb too, and I'm sitting here trying to get my own mud off, like, and
Yep.
scared of being shining too brightly, like having all of those feelings and processing at the same time. Like parenthood is just, it's a whole thing. Like you're bringing all your own stuff, you got your kids' stuff, you're trying to manage and do all this while managing yourself, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and oftentimes we're co-parenting, so they bring their own stuff to the conversation too, or to all of the dynamics, right? It, it, you're right. It is so complex when we pull all of it together and trying to manage all of that it's not easy, but it's the most important work we could ever possibly do.
yeah. And I think it can be so fulfilling too, in being able to do that. And that's why one of the things, and I think that, the work that you do is so important too, is because I think as parents, we can often shame ourselves like, oh, I should be doing this. And well, I messed up again. I shouldn't have said that to my kid, or now I'm throwing mud at them. But I think that like we aren't supposed to be perfect, but we can continually do and try to improve and be able to keep reaching for more. And by being that for our kids, coming back and repairing when we are, out of line or reacted in ways that we didn't want to, and just modeling that behavior and modeling that it's okay to be an imperfect person and that we don't expect perfection from them either. Like, if we release ourselves from expecting perfection from ourselves, then we can really actually instill that to our kids of like, you don't need to be perfect either because we're all flawed humans and we're all going to react badly sometimes. And that's just part of being human and being able to just have the compassion and ability to be able to give that space for them to accept themselves fully as well. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm a perfectionist people pleaser. Like, I got a lot of gate 18 in my design. And it has been a struggle for me to have these very high standards and expectations for myself and have a lot of like self-criticism when I don't reach them. And I don't want them to have to struggle with that any more than they need to either. And so it has taught me so much about the way that I talk to myself, the compassion that I give to myself. And the more that I lean into that, the better I show up as a parent and the better I show up for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know why I hadn't really fully wrapped my head around this, but as you were talking, I was thinking like in order for us to help our kids keep their globe glowing, we have to get the mud off of ours too. And it's not perfect and it's not easy, but we have to go first, right? In order for us to show up for them. So, oh, this is such a good discussion. Um, one thing I wanted to ask, I often share, uh, not often, I always share something practical at the end of every episode. And I'm so curious, just thinking about the things we've been talking about or the work that you do with your clients, you know, how do we help parents create that balance so that they're showing up for themselves, showing up for their kids, uh, using forgiveness for them when they don't, maybe meet their own expectations. How do you help parents create that balance?
Yeah, so the things that I think that are most important is really getting that clarity first. So I think that like tuning in, and there's a couple of journaling exercises that I usually do really early on with my clients to be able to help them to just kind of digest and go through, and then we go through and we look for some patterns and things to find out what is really important. But just kind of writing down what your values are, what your core desired feelings are. And one of the ways that's easy, because I think that that can be daunting. But one of the things that's a really easy journal prompt, and I had gotten this when I was in a coaching container a number of years ago, and it's just like, wouldn't it be nice? So you can think about this for like, wouldn't it be nice just in general in my life? Or it can be for a specific season that you're in. So just recently I was going through this again too, because kind of like a part of a mid-year reset. And just like, wouldn't it be nice for this next season and this, the next rest of this year? And just start listing things and don't judge yourself and don't put parameters up there, but keep going. So usually by about the seventh one, so the first ones will be like, wouldn't it be nice if I had more time? Wouldn't it be nice if I could have a glass of water right now? Wouldn't it be nice? Like, it's just random stuff. But once you get to about 7 or 10 things, it'll start to be a little bit bigger. And then it's like, oh, I didn't realize that like I was desiring some of these things. And you'll start to notice like some of these bigger things that are just coming up if you just kind of free write it out. And then looking at that and thinking, how can I incorporate that? And mostly, how can I make it be easy? Because I think a lot of times we make things overly complicated. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, wouldn't it be nice if I had a little bit of time for me in the morning? And like an easy solution for that might be like, let me just call up the neighbor friend and ask if she wants to swap on carpools in the morning. And like that would free up every other day for me. But putting myself out there and asking for help feels really complicated. So instead, I'm going to like make this whole routine where I get up an hour and a half earlier every day so that I have this time and do all these things. Like, how can you make it the easiest way possible to be able to just allow more of the desires that you want and the more like filling your own cup? So looking at it in terms of that and like finding those values and then just seeing if there's a couple of really easy wins that you can have to start to give yourself some of that space.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love having guests on the podcast because everybody has different things. Journal prompts is that was the first, so that's great. And it's so simple, right? It's so simple. It's so easy to do. All of us have the skill set to be able to do that. And even if you're not a writer, I go in phases. Sometimes I journal every morning. Sometimes I end up opening up the voice memo on my phone and I journal via voice because sometimes I don't know for what reason. Maybe it's the energy that's happening or the season that I'm in at that time, but I'll go through phases where voicing is what I really need to do to get it out of me. And sometimes I meditate on it and it doesn't come out of me anywhere. It just settles in me. And so that's such a great way to get get thinking about how we have so much more control over what's happening in our life and not feeling so caught up in our own chaos that we create for ourselves, whether or not we know it.
Yeah, and I think too, I love that you're like pointing out because I think for me again too, like I have seasons of time where I'll do something very consistently for a while and then it'll start to lose some of its juiciness and then it's just kind of like something I'm checking off a list. And I know as soon as it becomes that, then I need to mix it up and I need to try something else. And I think that, going back to human design, any of that, like there are certain ways that will hit you particularly better based on your design. Like the self-projected projectors having them just talk it out to somebody and having them not give any judgment, but literally just reflecting back what they're saying is just going to hit them differently than like, or, as a generator, just sitting down and like listing, like, do I want this or this? Like, give myself two options, or do I want this, yes or no? Like, having those different ways and not thinking that just because something worked for somebody else, that it's automatically what you should be doing and
Mhm.
experimenting a little bit and finding what's really actually hitting for you because we all are going to respond to things a little bit differently.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so great. I was thinking too as you were talking that sometimes when it seems like none of the ways are working, what I really need to do is just reconnect with nature. And so going out and picking weeds. It used to be something that I was like, I don't want to do it. But now like just that quiet and peace and my hands are dirty. And sometimes some of my best stuff comes up in my head when I'm just picking the weeds in the peace and quiet. And so, finding those things that you have your own evidence that it works for you really is the ticket. But I love the idea of a prompt to get us going, to know even what we are asking ourselves or asking source for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes just getting an outside perspective. So whether that's, getting with somebody that does this or if it's just like a friend or a spouse or something, but just like I'm just gonna say some things and I'm just gonna get an outside perspective if you're really like stuck in the I call it like the cycle, the swirl of all the things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, so that's kind of a good segue. I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to share as far as like practical things that you wanted to make sure that you share from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that really and I think it's so cliche, but I think it's cliche for a reason too, of like just taking care of yourself and really allowing yourself the space to be able to meet some of your own needs. I think the more that I have leaned into like what I may have formerly considered selfish, um, of taking the time that I need, of getting the quiet space that I need, of doing some of the things that really just light me up again, I show up way better. So I think that for your listeners, like just give yourself permission to do that thing that you've been wanting to, that you've been craving, that you know would make you feel better, and maybe you've been putting off because other people's needs are taking priority at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and people will often ask like, yeah, this all sounds fine and great, but how do you do that? And like that idea of like, okay, yeah, I'm covered in mud. How do I get rid of it? And that's it, right? It is about listening to what our body needs. It's about making decisions according to our type. And it's about doing things that we probably used to think were selfish, but they're not selfish at all. They're necessary.
Yeah, and just 1%. It doesn't have to be a complete life overhaul. Like that's what I work with all the time. It's just like 1% better
Yeah.
every day. And then as we get there, then you're going to be so much further down than if you try to implement everything at once and give up because it's too hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. So Christina, how can listeners connect with you? Where can they find you? Do you have anything that you're working on right now?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I have a podcast that's called Clear and on Purpose, and I do weekly just inspiration tidbits, schedules, practical tips, things like that, ideas for you to be able to implement. I also do one-on-one coaching. I do some longer containers, which I really enjoy because it really gives us the opportunity to dig in and be able to hit that resistance. So whether that's just in life, if you're actually looking like, oh, you know what, actually. I really want to get some clarity on my business and I'm really looking at ways that I want to do this thing. And that's my biggest priority. But again, like I like that cohesive approach. So we're going to do both. But over this, into the fall, over the summer, I'm actually doing minis. So I'm doing little mini coaching series where it's a shorter time frame. So it's about 6 weeks. And we just do a strategy session and then a couple of check-ins and the rest of it's all voice and text support. But it's for people that are like, you know what, I really know that I need something. I want to get that clarity. I want to start moving forward. And also, I just am not sure that I'm ready for a long-term commitment or an investment like that. But I really want to just kind of get some quick wins and see where I can take that. And so I do have a couple of spaces that are open for that as well. And they can get on my email list and all of that to get more information on those.
Oh, exciting, exciting. So where can they find you?
Yeah, so Clear It on Purpose, and then I'm also on Instagram at Christina Slaback, on Facebook as there as well, and then I have a website, ChristinaSlaback.com.
Perfect. And we'll get all those
I'll
links
send it
that you
all to
want
you.
in the show notes. So that's golden. So, oh my goodness, Christina, thank you so much for hanging out on Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. This was such a deep conversation. It was great. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I always love connecting with you, Angie.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Take care and thanks for listening. We'll talk soon.